Number 1. 1959 Nash Metropolitan. $2,200, Montgomery, Alabama. Let's kick things off with something that doesn't just stand out, it practically begs you to stop and stare. Up for grabs in Montgomery, Alabama, priced at a very approachable $2,200, is this 1959 Nash Metropolitan. Now, if you've ever seen one of these little cars out in the wild, you know it's not the kind of vehicle that blends into traffic. It's small, it's quirky, it's playful, and it represents a very unique moment in American automotive history, when the idea of a compact car was still almost foreign to most people here in the States. Back in the late 1950s, most American cars were growing bigger, wider, and more powerful every year. Full-size sedans with acres of sheet metal and fins tall enough to double as airplane wings were the norm. But the Nash Metropolitan broke every single one of those rules. Instead of excess, it offered restraint. Instead of overwhelming size, it was tiny, almost toy-like compared to its contemporaries. And yet, that's exactly what makes it so appealing today. This particular Metropolitan wears a clean white exterior paired with a black interior, a simple but timeless color combination. While it's not currently running, the seller notes that it still turns over, which is more encouraging than it sounds. Think about it. This car is over 60 years old. To know that the engine still has some life in it, that it's not sea-solid, is a little victory in itself. It means that with some mechanical love, fresh fuel, tuned carburetor, maybe new ignition components, you could likely have it back to running condition without a total rebuild. One of the biggest selling points here is how complete the car is. The seller proudly mentions that it's one of the most complete Metropolitans they've ever come across, and that says a lot. So many of these cars over the decades were scavenged for parts or left neglected until pieces just disappeared. To find one that still has all the trim, the glass, the emblems, the little odds and ends, that's rare. And speaking of glass, every single piece is intact. If you've ever been on a hunt for Metropolitan glass, you know it's not just lying around at your local junkyard. Finding it all present and accounted for makes this project a much easier road to travel. And then there's the body. According to the seller, it's remarkably clean, showing very little rust. That's a huge win, because rust is usually the number one killer of small, older cars like this. The reason it's in such good shape is that it's been stored undercover for years. No rain soaking the floors, no snow eating away at the steel, no sun baking the paint into powder. It survived time better than most of its siblings, which means you don't have to spend half your budget just patching holes before you even get to the fun part of the build. Now, let's talk about what these cars mean once restored. They're not muscle cars. They're not hot rods. They're not luxurious cruisers. But that's exactly what makes them so special. A restored Nash Metropolitan is a guaranteed attention magnet. People come up to you at gas stations, at grocery stores, at car shows, and they'll say, "What is that?" Kids will point. Older folks will smile with nostalgia, and car enthusiasts will nod with appreciation. It's the kind of car that brings joy wherever it goes. And driving one, that's a whole different kind of fun. With a manual transmission, you're fully engaged, working with a simple little machine that feels alive in your hands. It's not about speed. It's about the experience, the connection between you, the road, and a piece of history that refuses to be forgotten. For someone looking to build a weekend show car, this is the perfect blank canvas. For someone who just wants something totally different to cruise around town in, it's a low-cost entry into classic car ownership that guarantees smiles per mile. It's quirky, it's compact, it's approachable, and it's loaded with the kind of personality you'll never find in anything modern. So, whether you see it as a future jewel in your garage, or just a fun little project to tinker with, this 1959 Nash Metropolitan is worth a serious look. At $2,200, it's not just affordable. It's an invitation to step into a different era, one where cars are character baked into every curve, and where even the smallest vehicle could still make the biggest impression. Number 2, 1965 Plymouth Valiant Coupe, $2,500, Zephyrhills, Florida. Next up, sitting down in Zephyrhills, Florida, is a car that proves you don't need a bottomless bank account to step into the world of vintage machines. For just $2,500, you can get yourself behind the wheel of a 1965 Plymouth Valiant two-door coupe. And here's the kicker. It actually runs and drives. That fact alone puts it head and shoulders above so many other projects that are basically just piles of sheet metal on 4 flat tires. Now let's talk about the heart of this thing. Under the hood, you'll find Chrysler's legendary Slant 6 engine, paired up with an automatic transmission. If you've been around Mopars at all, you've heard the stories about the Slant 6. They built their reputation on being practically indestructible. Farmers, mechanics, and old-school taxi drivers all say the same thing. You could run them low on oil, cook them in traffic, beat them to death, and somehow they just keep on chugging. It's the kind of motor you could almost neglect and it would still get you home. For a first-time classic buyer, that kind of dependability is worth its weight in gold. Of course, a $2,500 classic is never going to be perfect. This one is still a project car, no question. The floor pans are rusted through, and that's not a small fix. You're going to need a cut and weld to make it solid again. The interior has definitely seen better days. Think worn seats, faded panels, and a vibe that tells you it's been sitting more than driving for a long time. But that's the reality of project cars. They're unfinished stories, waiting for someone to pick up the pen and continue writing. On the outside, the Valiant wears a coat of tired off-white paint, dulled by time and the Florida sun. But here's the pleasant surprise. The body itself is pretty straight. No major dents, no catastrophic damage. It's honest. And when you peek inside, you'll see that bold red interior that still holds some of its original charm, even if it's not pristine. That contrast, white outside, red inside, gives it just enough flash to remind you this wasn't just basic transportation back in the day. And then there's the paperwork. The seller notes that the car has a clean title. That may not sound glamorous, but if you've ever tried dealing with an old car without one, you know it's a headache you don't want. A clean title means you can focus your time and money on fixing the car, not chasing down legal red tape. Valiants from the mid-1960s don't always get the spotlight, but they deserve it. They're light on their feet, easy to wrench on, and there's still a part supply out there if you know where to look. With some sweat equity, you could turn this car into a low-budget cruiser that'll run for years. Or you could go wild. Drop in a small block, beef up the suspension, and turn it into a sleeper that surprises everyone at the stoplight. At the end of the day, what you've got here is a classic Mopar that's approachable, affordable, and full of potential. If you want something different from the usual Mustangs and Camaros without spending a fortune, this Valiant might just be the golden ticket into the hobby. Number 3. 1977 Chevrolet Nova, $2,500 Grand, Alabama. Now, let's swing over to Grand, Alabama, where for the same asking price of $2,500, you can score yourself a 1977 Chevrolet Nova. Now, don't let the fact that it's a 4-door make you walk away too fast. This isn't just some worn-out old grocery getter. It's actually packing some pretty serious hardware under the hood that makes it worth a second look. First things first, power. This Nova is running a 350 Vortex small block engine, backed up by a tried-and-true TH350 automatic transmission. That combo alone makes it more exciting than your average 4-door sedan. And it's not just the engine and trans. It's breathing through dual exhausts, fed by a Holley carburetor, sparked by HEI ignition, and helped along by long tube headers. Add in a new alternator and a freshly redone fuel system, and what you've got is a mechanical package that's not only functional, but already halfway upgraded. This isn't a car you have to drag out of a field and rebuild just to get it to move. The seller makes it clear. It runs, it drives, and it stops. In project car territory, that's half the battle won. Now let's talk looks. On the outside, it's a bit of a Frankenstein's monster. You got panels wearing tan, yellow, and gray primer. There's even a rear door that's been hit with some rattle can primer, sprayed right over the original paint. It's patchy, it's rough, but it's also honest. Nothing's being hidden here. What you see is what you get. And for someone willing to put in the body work and lay down a proper paint job, this Nova could transform completely. The deal even comes with some radio components and speakers, which might be a nice bonus or just another project, depending on your perspective. But hey, at least they're included. Here's the real point. Yes, it's a 4-door, no, it won't fetch the same price or attention as a 2-door coupe. But if you can get past that, What you're looking at is a rock-solid platform for a reliable, budget-friendly muscle sedan. You could daily it, you could build it into a sleeper, or you could just enjoy it as is, a fun, affordable V8 powered cruiser that doesn't try to be anything more than what it is. Sometimes the best projects aren't the flashy ones. Sometimes they're the underdogs, the overlooked four doors with good bones and better drivetrains. This Nova is exactly that kind of car. Number 4. 1968 Chevrolet Impala, $1,500, Indian Trail, North Carolina. All right, let's not sugarcoat it. This one's rough, real rough. But if you're the kind of person who sees potential in rust and broken glass, then maybe this 1968 Chevrolet Impala sitting in Indian Trail, North Carolina, could be your next challenge. Listed at just $1,500, with a clean title in hand, it's priced like a parts car, and honestly, that's probably what most people will use it for. The seller is upfront about the condition. There's heavy rust throughout the body. The interior? Completely trashed, almost to the point of being unrecognizable. And to add insult to injury, a tree limb fell on the right rear quarter, leaving behind some real damage. So yeah, if you're dreaming of an easy fixer-upper, this isn't it. But here's why it's still worth talking about. Underneath all that decay, the drivetrain is still complete. This car came from the factory with a 350 small block V8, paired with a turbo 400 automatic transmission. Both are still present and accounted for. That alone gives it value, whether you're thinking about restoring this Impala or transplanting the powertrain into something else. The front clip, hood, fenders, grille is reportedly in decent shape. That's another big plus, because those pieces can be tough to track down in good condition. If you're already working on a 68 Impala, this car could be the donor you need to finish the job. So let's call it like it is. For the realist, this is a parts haul. You'll pull the drivetrain, maybe some sheet metal, and send the rest to Crusher. But for the dreamer, the one who doesn't shy away from welding, fabricating, and spending years in the garage, this could be the ultimate challenge. Imagine the satisfaction of taking something everyone else wrote off as scrap and turning it into a roadworthy classic again. That's not for the faint of heart, but it's the kind of story that makes car guys legends. At $1,500, with a clean title, is an open invitation to either strip it for parts or take a swing at one of the hardest rescues you'll ever attempt. Number 5. 1965 Mercury Marauder Park Lane, $2,250, Lone Oak, Texas. And finally, let's wrap up with something big, bold, and dripping with cool factor. Sitting in Lone Oak, Texas, priced at $2,250, is a 1965 Mercury Marauder Park Lane 2-door hardtop. Now, if you're into the less common side of American classics, your eyes probably just lit up, because this isn't your everyday Ford or Chevy. This is a Mercury, and not just any Mercury, but the top-of-the-line Park Lane trim. Here's what we know. The car's been sitting for years. It's not showroom ready, it's not turnkey, but the seller says it's complete, and even more importantly, the engine still runs. That's huge, because with cars that have been sitting, the motor is usually the biggest question mark. To have one that fires up, even after years of dormancy, makes the whole project that much more approachable. The body is described as straight, which is another big win. You're not fighting twisted panels or a bent frame. The interior is dusty and aged, sure, but the seller claims it's in decent condition overall, which means you've got good bones to start with. Now, here's the catch. There's no title. For some buyers, that's a deal breaker. For others, it's just a hurdle. Depending on where you live, you might be able to register it with a bill of sale, or you might need to go through a more involved process. Either way, it's something to factor into the deal. But let's zoom out and talk about what this car is. The Marauder Park Lane was Mercury's top dog in '65. It had the luxury touches, the sleek styling, and the presence to stand out even among the sea of full-size American iron of the day. These cars never got the same attention as their Ford Galaxy or Chevy Impala cousins, but that's part of the appeal now. They're rare, they're unusual, and when you roll up in one, people are going to ask questions. They're going to say, "What is that?" And you get to smile and explain. For the right buyer, this is a diamond in the rough. It's a chance to own something different, something that doesn't blend in at the local cruise night. Restored, a Marauder Park Lane is a massive, sleek cruiser that turns heads everywhere it goes. It's the kind of car that makes you feel like a king of the road, gliding along in style and comfort that no modern sedan could even come close to replicating. Yes, it's a project. Yes, it'll take work. But the payoff is a piece of mid-60s American history that's every bit as cool as the more popular classics. Maybe cooler, simply because it's not something you see every day. At $2,250, it's a rare opportunity to snag one of these forgotten gems before it slips away. Number 6. 1970 Chevrolet C10 Long Bed, $2,500, Seymour, Missouri. Sliding into the 6th spot on this list is a truck that really embodies what old-school American pickups were all about, the 1970 Chevrolet C10 Long Bed. Now, this isn't just a vehicle, it's a piece of rolling history. The kind of truck that probably spent decades doing honest work around a farm, hauling lumber down dirt roads, or maybe even pulling a small boat out to the lake for fishing weekends. It's got that lived-in, salt-of-the-earth vibe that makes you instantly picture it sitting outside a small-town feed store, parked alongside other hard-working rigs. And now, it's sitting in Seymour, Missouri, patiently waiting for the next owner to breathe new life into it. The asking price? Just $2,500. That's firmly in the project truck category, but this isn't a pile of junk by any stretch. The body has been sprayed in a flat black finish, inside and out, which gives it this no-frills, down-to-business appearance that actually suits the truck surprisingly well. The classic squared-off C10 lines are still there, unpretentious and rugged, and the blackout treatment adds a sort of street rod toughness without even trying. It's not glossy or flashy, but there's a kind of quiet cool to it, like an old pair of broken-in work boots. Now, full disclosure, this C10 doesn't currently run. It's going to need some work before it's roadworthy. But before you write it off as just another dead project, here's where things get interesting. The seller has already invested time and money into important basics. Brand new brake lines and fresh wheel cylinders are already installed. That might not sound glamorous compared to chrome wheels or fancy paint, but any seasoned car guy will tell you that starting with a braking system is exactly the right way to go. It means somebody wasn't just throwing parts at it for looks. They were thinking ahead, prioritizing safety. That's a promising sign. And then there's the heart of the beast. Instead of the original 1970 small block, what you'll find under the hood is a Chevrolet 350 V8 pulled from a 1995 truck. That's a serious upgrade. These later generation small blocks came with better oiling systems, improved metallurgy, and stronger internals. They're also incredibly well supported by the aftermarket. You can find everything from carb to EFI conversion kits, aluminum intake manifolds, and roller rockers to complete performance top-end packages, all over the internet. So whether you want to just get it running stock, or you got dreams of headers, a Lopi camshaft, and maybe even a fuel injection conversion, this engine gives you a much better starting point than the tired factory motor would have. The paperwork situation is clean, literally. The seller has a valid Missouri title in hand. That's a big sigh of relief right there, because we all know how many project trucks pop up online with lost title or bill of sale only. With this one, you don't have to fight the DMV. Here's the catch: you're not driving it home. You'll need to bring a trailer, because as it sits, it isn't drivable. But that's okay, because this is the kind of truck that rewards effort. The possibilities are wide open. Want to leave the flat black paint as is and go for a patina build with some wide white walls and a wood bed floor? Perfect. Want to slam it down with airbags? Throw on a set of polished aluminum wheels and spray it in candy apple red? This is a blank canvas. Or maybe you just want a reliable shop truck to haul parts and tools. You could easily make that happen too. And let's not forget about the fact that it's a long bed. Some people shy away from them, thinking the short beds are more desirable. But the truth is the long bed gives you extra space, extra utility, and a bigger canvas if you want to get creative. When properly lowered, these long beds have an undeniable road presence. They just look substantial rolling down the street. You could bag it, tub the rear, and run some fat meats. Or you could keep it tall and rugged with a set of aggressive tires, and use it like Chevrolet intended. In short, This 1970 C10 isn't a turnkey driver. It's a project through and through. But it's the good kind of project. The kind where the foundation is solid, the engine is a step up from stock, and the paperwork is clean. For $2,500, that's an honest-to-goodness deal for someone who's ready to roll up their sleeves. Number 7. 1977 Chevrolet Monte Carlo, $2,000, Marshfield, Missouri. Taking the 7th spot, we move away from pickup trucks and step into something with more style, more curves, and a whole lot of 70s attitude, the 1977 Chevrolet Monte Carlo. Now, when you think about late 70s personal luxury coupes, this car should be one of the first that comes to mind. It's long, it's wide, it's unapologetically dramatic, and it carries itself with the kind of swagger you just don't see in modern cars. And here's the kicker. You can grab this example in Marshfield, Missouri for just $2,000. Let's talk mechanicals first. This Monte Carlo is powered by a 305 cubic inch V8 mated to an automatic transmission. It's not the most fire-breathing combo Chevy ever built, but it's classic, dependable hardware that gets the job done. The issue here is that the engine currently has low compression, which means it isn't running. To get it back on the road, you'll either need to tear it down and rebuild it, or pull it and swap in something new. But in the world of project cars, that's hardly a deal breaker. It's an opportunity. For example, maybe you want to stick with originality and freshen up the 305 with new rings, bearings, and gaskets. Or maybe you'd rather slide in a stout small block 350. You can buy crate versions of those that drop right in. And if you're the type who wants modern performance and efficiency, this is an affordable platform for an LS swap. There are already dozens of documented builds showing you exactly how to make it work, and the aftermarket makes the process easier every year. So really, the non-running engine shouldn't scare you. It should excite you, because it gives you freedom to take the car in whatever direction you want. What really sets this Monte Carlo apart, though, is the condition of the body. The seller, City Limit Auto Sales and Service, notes that it has minimal rust. That's a huge deal. Anyone who's shopped for 70s GM coupes knows how often you find them with quarter panels rotted out, floor pans soft as cardboard, and trunk lids that look like lace. To find one with relatively solid bones at this price is rare. Styling-wise, these second-generation Montes are pure 1970s elegance. You got those long, sweeping body lines, the sharply angled front end, the oversized doors, and the signature opera windows out back. This was Chevrolet's way of saying, we can do luxury, but we'll do it our way. The Monte Carlo had a more youthful edge compared to the Buick Regal or Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, and it was absolutely dripping with curb appeal. And once you've sorted out the drivetrain, you'll remember why these cars were so beloved. The ride quality is buttery smooth, wide cushioned bench seats, a suspension tuned for comfort, and a long wheelbase that soaks up the bumps like you're floating. It was marketed as a personal luxury coupe, and that's exactly what it delivers. The presence of a big car, but tailored to a single driver who wants to feel like a boss behind the wheel. For $2,000, this Monte Carlo is a great starting point. You're not buying a finished car, but you are buying style, potential, and solid sheet metal. And in today's market, that's worth a lot. Number 8. 1969 Ford F100, $8,500 OBO, New City, New York. At number 8, we've got a truck that's less about rolling up your sleeves and more about turning the key and enjoying the ride, a 1969 Ford F100 in New City, New York. This one's priced higher than the others we've looked at, $8, $500 or best offer. But with good reason. It's not just a project. It's already a well-kept, well-running example of one of Ford's most beloved pickups. Under the hood sits a 390 cubic inch V8 from Ford's legendary FE engine family. If you know your Fords, you know the 390 is no slouch. It's a big block designed for torque, and in a pickup like this, that means effortless pulling power and smooth cruising. Pair that motor with a C4 automatic transmission, and you got a drivetrain combo that's both desirable and dependable. Even better, the transmission has already been professionally rebuilt by a local shop, and the seller has paperwork to prove it. That's a huge plus, because let's face it, when someone on Facebook Marketplace has rebuilt Half the time it means my cousin tinkered with it in his garage. With receipts, you know the work was done right, and the proof is in the driving experience. According to the seller, this truck tracks straight and true even at highway speeds, 70 miles per hour, no problem. That speaks volumes about the condition of the suspension and steering. A lot of old trucks wander all over the road, but not this one. The interior is another pleasant surprise. It's tidy, functional, and clearly cared for. There's a modern stereo head unit installed, though one of the speakers could use replacing, and overall it feels like a truck that's been maintained rather than neglected. Bottom line, this is not a rusted-out barn find you're dragging home on a flatbed. This is a classic Ford that's close to being a true daily driver. Whether you want something to show off at cruise nights, use as a stylish weekend workhorse, or even tow a small trailer, this F100 has you covered. For $8,500, you're buying peace of mind and a lot of truck. Number 9. 1966 Ford Thunderbird Coupe, $2,200, Aransas Pass, Texas. Coming in at number 9 is something with a bit more flair, a 1966 Ford Thunderbird Coupe. Listed at just $2,200, this big personal luxury coupe is one of those cars that turns heads, even if people can't quite put their finger on why. It's stylish, it's imposing, and it has a certain jet-age swagger that sets it apart from your usual muscle car suspects. Under the hood, it's got the same engine you saw in that 1969 F100, the 390 cubic inch V8, this time paired with a smooth 3-speed automatic. Back in the day, that setup was designed for long, relaxed highway cruising. Big torque, quiet operation, and an easy driving transmission. That's the Thunderbird formula. Now, don't get it twisted, it's not road ready. The seller says it needs a new mechanical fuel pump, which costs about $40, a fresh fuel line, and a brake master cylinder. That's wrench-turning stuff, but not catastrophic. If you got a weekend and some tools, you could knock out most of those repairs yourself. Cosmetically, it's got some issues too. A dented front fender, some rust on the floors, and what the seller describes as a strange smell in the cabin. That's less than glamorous, but it comes with the territory when you're dealing with a nearly 60-year-old car. The upside? It's got a clean Texas title, and the seller is even open to trades, preferably for something with working AIC. That tells you they're motivated to sell, not just dangling a car out there for attention. If you're tired of Mustangs and Camaros at every car show, the Thunderbird is a unique alternative. The styling is pure mid-60s drama. The interiors were plush for their time, and the road presence is undeniable. For just over $2,000, this is a chance to stand out from the crowd. Number 10. 1972 Chevrolet Monte Carlo, $2,000, Childersburg, Alabama. Closing out our list at number 10, we got another Monte Carlo, this time from the early 70s. Priced at just $2,000, this 1972 Chevrolet Monte Carlo is basically a barn find special, untouched, untested, and waiting for the right person to bring it back to life. Under the hood is a 350 small block V8, though the seller hasn't tried to fire it up. That means you have to assume it doesn't run until proven otherwise. But don't let that scare you. These small blocks are cheap to rebuild, and even cheaper to replace if you decide to just buy a running takeout motor. The important thing here is the structure. The seller says the floor pans are solid, which is a huge win. So many of these old GMs are rotted from the ground up, and if you don't have to replace floors, you're already ahead of the game. The car itself wears an unusual color combo, blue exterior with an orange interior. Whether that's factory original, a custom swap, or the result of decades apart replacements, it gives the car a ton of personality. Throw in the fact that extra chrome parts are included with the sale, and you've got a nice stash of spares to help with restoration. Early Montes are something special. They were marketed as personal luxury cars, but underneath the fancy touches, they shared DNA with the Chevelle. That means you get muscle car bones with a slightly more upscale body, and today they're still underappreciated compared to their A-body siblings. For just $2,000, this Monte Carlo is the kind of deal that disappears fast. Whether you're looking for a unique street rod project, a platform for a sleeper build, or just a budget-friendly way to get into classic American cars, this is worth a serious look. Number 11. 1974 Chevrolet Corvette Coupe, $5,900, Huntington Station, New York. Let's start off with something that's bound to make any muscle car enthusiast perk up their ears, a 1974 Chevrolet Corvette Coupe. Sitting in Huntington Station, New York, with an asking price of just $5,900. Now, if you've been in the classic car world for a while, you already know how rare it's becoming to find a Corvette project in this price range, especially one that checks the kind of boxes this one does. We're talking about a factory 4-speed car, and that alone makes it stand out. In today's market, so many of the C3 Corvettes floating around are automatics. To stumble across one that still has a manual gearbox, one that lets you bang to the gears the way Chevrolet intended, is almost like finding a needle in a haystack. The 1974 Corvette was a transitional year for the model. The 73S had introduced the soft urethane nose to replace the chrome bumper, but 74 was the very first year that both front and rear ends used a new impact-absorbing design to meet federal safety standards. And it was also the final year before catalytic converters started showing up, which means the exhaust note was still pure, unrestricted American V8 sound. So this particular model sits right in that sweet spot, a mix of the early Stingray spirit with just enough modernization to keep it usable in the mid-70s. According to the seller, the car runs great, and maybe even more importantly, the frame is solid. That's the deal breaker for so many of these cars, because the fiberglass bodies can often look decent while the steel underneath quietly rots away. Knowing the frame is solid takes a huge worry off your shoulders. Beyond that, the seller's already invested in making it a better driver right out of the box. It's got brand new brakes, fresh tires, and replacement bumpers, which means it's not just sitting neglected. It's been cared for. The body itself is reported to be in great shape. Fiberglass can be tricky once it starts to crack or separate. Repairs can be a nightmare. But here, the seller says you won't find major issues, and those sharp Stingray lines still cut the air the way they did back in the day. It's the kind of shape that, no matter how many years go by, never fails to stop people in their tracks. Long nose, swooping curves, a cabin that sits almost over the rear axle. Whether you're cruising down the highway, parked at a weekend show, or just pulling into the gas station, this car will get attention. Now here's where things get interesting. The car was being prepped for autocross use. That means instead of the original dash, the interior now sports a custom setup with aftermarket gauges. It's built more for function than originality. So you've got instruments that are easier to read and more reliable when you're really putting the car through its paces. Purists might frown at that, but if you're the kind of driver who actually wants to use this car for fun, it's a feature, not a bug. And for those who are more about factory correctness, the good news is the seller still has the original dash and components. So you get to choose your path. Keep it as a lightweight performance toy, or return it to stock form and enjoy the authentic Stingray interior. That kind of flexibility is rare. And when you combine it with the fact that this is a 4-speed, solid-frame Corvette for under $6,000, it becomes even more appealing. Think about it. The C3 generation is finally getting the respect it deserves. For years, people focus on the C2 mid-years, or the earliest chrome bumper C3S. But now collectors are waking up to the fact that these mid-70s models still offer tons of style, plenty of performance potential, and a much friendlier price tag. Whether you want to bring it back to showroom stock, build it into a track day machine, or just keep it as a cool weekend driver, the 74 Corvette has the bones to be something special. Number 12. 1979 Ford Thunderbird Convertible Custom, $5,500, Sewell, New Jersey. Now here's something you won't see at every car show, a 1979 Ford Thunderbird that's been transformed into a convertible. That's right, this car started life as a standard 2-door hardtop coupe, but somewhere along the line, somebody decided that the Thunderbird deserved to feel the wind in its hair. The roof was cut off, modifications were made, and what you're left with today is a one-of-a-kind late 70s drop-top cruiser. At just $5,500 and located in Sewell, New Jersey, this Thunderbird offers something very different from the usual run-of-the-mill classics. The late 70s was an era when American cars were big, bold, and unapologetically brash. The Thunderbird of this generation was huge. Long hood, big trunk, Wide stance, lots of chrome. Turning something like that into a convertible takes it to another level. It suddenly goes from being a personal luxury coupe to being a rolling statement piece. Wherever you drive this car, people will stop and stare. Under the hood, it's got Ford's tried and true 351 Windsor V8. This is a workhorse engine, known for its durability and its strong low-end torque. It's not the highest horsepower motor Ford ever built, but it'll get this big cruiser down the road just fine, and it's one of the easiest engines in the world to maintain and upgrade. The seller says it runs and drives well, so you're not taking on a car that needs to be dragged out of the field and rebuilt from scratch. This is something you can hop into and start enjoying right away. And it's been kept up mechanically, too. There's a fresh carburetor on it, new spark plugs and wires, a new ignition coil, and it just had an oil change less than 300 miles ago. Those are all the kinds of little things that add up when you're trying to make an old car reliable, and here they've already been taken care of. You're not inheriting a laundry list of deferred maintenance. You're getting a car that's been kept alive and is ready for the road. Sure, the paint isn't perfect. The seller admits there are flaws here and there, but let's be honest. With a custom car like this, perfection isn't really the point. This is a car about character, about personality, about showing up somewhere and knowing that you have the only one like it. A few imperfections in the finish don't take away from that. If anything, they remind you that this is a driver, not a trailer queen. Here's another fun twist. The seller is open to trades. They'll consider newer sedans. Think Honda Civics, Hyundai Elantras, or even trucks. That means if you've got a modern commuter sitting in your driveway that you're bored with, and you've always wanted something fun and different to take out on weekends, you can make a deal here without spending a dime in cash. You trade keys, and suddenly you're the one cruising around town in a custom convertible Thunderbird. At the end of the day, this car is about standing out. If you want to blend in, drive a silver crossover. But if you want to make an entrance, roll up in this big, brash, late 70s drop top with a 351 Windsor rumbling under the hood. It's weird, it's wonderful, and it's waiting for its next caretaker. Number 13, 1969 Chevrolet Impala Sedan, $7,000, Delaware Water Gap, Pennsylvania. Step back into the golden age of full-size American sedans with this 1969 Chevrolet Impala. Offered at $7,000 and located in the Delaware Water Gap area of Pennsylvania, this is a big-bodied four-door that still carries the presence, the character, and the attitude that made these cars icons of the late 60s. Now, right up front, the seller makes it clear they're listing this car on behalf of family, and they're not interested in wasting time. They don't want 100 is it still available messages, and they definitely don't want lowball offers. The title is clean, and serious buyers can arrange to see it by appointment. That tells you they're looking for someone who appreciates what this car is, not just someone looking to flip it for a quick buck. So what's the story with the car itself? Under the hood, you'll find a V8 that's been rebuilt and only has a few hundred miles on it since the work was done. That's a huge plus, because with so many classic cars, you're rolling the dice on an old engine with an unknown history. Here, you're starting with something fresh, something that hasn't been beaten to death. It breathes through a newer exhaust system too, which not only helps performance, but also gives it that proper muscle car soundtrack. Add in power steering, which makes maneuvering this big sedan manageable, and you've got a car that's ready to be enjoyed. The brakes are manual, which was typical for the year, but if you wanted to upgrade to power, that's a straightforward project. The car has been stored indoors, under a cover, for the past 7 years. That's huge, because it's kept the body and paint in great shape. Speaking of paint, it was professionally redone about 9 years ago in a dark green. That's not the factory shade, but it looks sharp, and according to the seller, it still shines. The doors open and shut solidly. The glass is all intact, and every piece of chrome trim is still there. The bumpers do show some surface rust, but nothing structural. The steel wheels have been painted silver, and they wear chrome trim rings that look clean and correct. The tires are modern radials with almost no visible wear, which means you're not going to have to replace them anytime soon. Inside, the story is a little different. The interior is mostly original, and it shows its age. There are tears, stains, and fading in the seats and door panels, but the dash and door sills are surprisingly well preserved. The main missing piece is the steering wheel insert and horn button. Functionally, the turn signals all work except the left one, and the blower motor for the vents and defrost is operational. No air conditioning here, but that's not uncommon for a car this vintage. An aftermarket radio has been installed, with a faceplate tucked away neatly in the glove box, so you get modern sound without ruining the look of the dash. Overall, this Impala offers a fantastic foundation. With the fresh engine, clean body, and mostly complete interior, you've got options. You could drive it as is, embracing the patina and character, or you could restore it further and really make it shine. Either way, it's got the bones, it's got the history, and it's got that unmistakable late 60s vibe you just can't find in modern cars. Number 14. 1968 Ford Galaxy 500, $7,500, Beaver, Ohio. Here's a car that's already had a lot of love poured into it. A 1968 Ford Galaxy 500, listed at $7,500 and located in Beaver, Ohio. This one's been a seller's personal project for the past few years, and while it's not quite finished, it's far enough along that someone else can pick it up, put their stamp on it, and have a fantastic classic to show for it. What do we know? The car runs, drives, and moves under its own power. That's no small thing in the world of vintage projects, where so many listings are for cars that ran when parked a decade ago. This Galaxy fires up, goes into gear, and gets down the road. That makes it an excellent starting point, because you don't have to begin your journey with engine swaps or hunting down parts just to make it mobile. The seller also notes that there have been plenty of new parts installed already, though they don't list them out in detail. Interested buyers are encouraged to reach out by text to get the full rundown, which suggests that a lot of work has already been done behind the scenes. The 1968 Galaxy is a handsome car. The design is sleek without being flashy, with a long, low profile that commands respect. It's a car with presence, and it makes today's sedans look bland by comparison. Whether your plan is to restore it to showroom condition, build a resto mod with modern upgrades, or slam it low and cruise to shows, the Galaxy is a versatile platform. It's got the kind of lines that work in just about any direction you want to take it. And here's another plus. The seller is open to trades. That means you're not limited to cash. If you've got another classic, a motorcycle, or even a newer daily driver, they might be interested in making a deal. That flexibility opens the door for more buyers, and it makes this Galaxy an even more intriguing opportunity. At the end of the day, what you're getting here is a classic full-size Ford that's already running and driving, with a lot of new parts already taken care of. It's past the barn-find stage, but still open-ended enough that you can shape it into whatever vision you've got. For $7,500, that's a pretty solid way to get into the world of 60s Fords. Number 15. 1969 Plymouth Barracuda Project. For $1,500, Alstead, New Hampshire. Now we're talking Mopar. For the die-hard fans out there, this one's gonna get your attention. A 1969 Plymouth Barracuda Fastback project, located in Alstead, New Hampshire, and priced at just $4,500. The second-generation Barracuda, built from 1967 through 1969, is becoming more and more desirable, and finding a project that's still solid is getting tough. This one's a great candidate. The seller says it's structurally solid overall, with only some patchwork done on the front floor pans. That's not bad at all for a car this age, especially a Mopar, since so many of them fell victim to rust. On top of that, this car already has conversion motor mounts installed for a big block V8. That tells you someone started this build with serious performance in mind. They weren't thinking about making a mild cruiser. They wanted a muscle car that could back up its looks with power. It's sitting on a set of new tires, which is a nice bonus, and it comes with an 8 3/4 rear end that already has fresh backing plates and axles. The chunk, the center section, is missing. But even so, having the rear end in place is a big step forward. The hood is included, and while the car is currently disassembled, the seller says it will be put back together soon. Importantly, paperwork is available. This isn't just a parts car without a title. This is a legitimate project with a future. What can you make it into? The possibilities are wide open. Maybe you want a street/strip car with a thumping big block on the hood, something you can take to Friday night test and tune. Maybe you want to build a nostalgic drag car that looks like it just rolled out of the late 60s. Or maybe you're dreaming of a radical resto mod with modern suspension and amenities, but with that unmistakable barracuda shape. Whatever direction you go, the bones are here and the price is right. At just $4,500, this is one of those opportunities that Mopar enthusiasts shouldn't sleep on. Second-gen barracudas aren't falling out of the sky anymore. They're only getting rarer. And if you've ever wanted one, now's the time to snag a project and start building your dream. Number 15. 1969 Plymouth Barracuda Project. For $1,500, Alstead, New Hampshire. Now we're talking Mopar. For the die-hard fans out there, this one's gonna get your attention. A 1969 Plymouth Barracuda Fastback project, located in Alstead, New Hampshire, and priced at just $4,500. The second-generation Barracuda, built from 1967 through 1969, is becoming more and more desirable, and finding a project that's still solid is getting tough. This one's a great candidate. The seller says it's structurally solid overall, with only some patchwork done on the front floor pans. That's not bad at all for a car of this age, especially a Mopar, since so many of them fell victim to rust. On top of that, this car already has conversion motor mounts installed for a big block V8. That tells you someone started this build with serious performance in mind. They weren't thinking about making a mild cruiser. They wanted a muscle car that could back up its looks with power. It's sitting on a set of new tires, which is a nice bonus, and it comes with an 8 3/4 rear end that already has fresh backing plates and axles. The chunk, the center section, is missing, but even so, having the rear end in place is a big step forward. The hood is included, and while the car is currently disassembled, the seller says it will be put back together soon. Importantly, paperwork is available. This isn't just a parts car without a title. This is a legitimate project with a future. What can you make it into? The possibilities are wide open. Maybe you want a street/strip car with a thumping big block on the hood, something you can take to Friday night test and tune. Maybe you want to build a nostalgic drag car that looks like it just rolled out of the late 60s. Or maybe you're dreaming of a radical resto mod with modern suspension and amenities, but with that unmistakable barracuda shape. Whatever direction you go, the bones are here and the price is right. At just $4,500, this is one of those opportunities that Mopar enthusiasts shouldn't sleep on. Second-gen barracudas aren't falling out of the sky anymore. They're only getting rarer. And if you've ever wanted one, now's the time to snag a project and start building your dream. Number 17. 1976 Oldsmobile Cutlass. $7,500 Obo, Caledonia, Illinois. Next up, we got a 1976 Oldsmobile Cutlass, listed out of Caledonia, Illinois, for $7,500 or best offer. Now, the Oldsmobile Cutlass wasn't just another mid-size American car back in the day. It was one of the best-selling cars in America throughout the 1970s. By the mid-70s, the Cutlass was everywhere. Driveways, shopping mall parking lots, suburban streets, and drag strips. It was a car that a family man could drive during the week and still be proud of pulling up it on the weekend. This particular 76 Cutlass comes equipped with the Oldsmobile 350 engine, paired to an automatic transmission. The seller notes that it runs, drives, and stops as it should, so you're not looking at a dead-in-the-water project. That's important, because half the battle with these cars is making sure the drivetrain is intact. The odometer reads just 31,798 miles, but the seller is realistic. It's almost certainly rolled over, meaning the car likely has 131,000 miles or more under its belt. That's pretty typical for a 1970s daily driver. Mechanically, the seller mentions a few issues. There's a ticking noise, which they've been told comes from a cracked exhaust header. It's not uncommon for older exhaust components to develop leaks or cracks, especially after decades of heat cycles. The car also takes a few extra cranks to fire up, largely because the choke isn't functioning properly. Those are both manageable issues for anyone with a little mechanical know-how. Rust and paint flaws are also present, which is no surprise for a Midwest car that's pushing 50 years old. The seller also believes the power steering system has a small leak, but on the flip side, a significant amount of recent work has already been done. This Cutlass has new brake lines and rear wheel cylinders, a new master cylinder, a brand new fuel tank and sending unit, a new water pump, a fresh battery installed last fall. So, a lot of the unglamorous but essential maintenance has already been handled. There are quirks, of course. The speedometer doesn't work. The car currently wears an Edelbrock aluminum intake, which is a nice performance upgrade. But the original intake is included if you want to return it to stock. Along with that, you're getting an extra carburetor, another water pump, and a spare air cleaner. Basically a small stash of parts to keep you going. Inside, the headliner was removed, but fabric from a previous owner is included if you want to reinstall it. The sunroof was leaking at some point, so the seller sealed it off. It has speakers installed, but no radio at the moment. Overall, this 76 Cutlass is exactly what you'd expect from a classic GMA body project. A running, driving car with some cosmetic and mechanical needs, but with a solid engine, a ton of new parts, and a seller willing to negotiate. For someone who wants to get into the world of vintage Oldsmobiles, this is a great place to start. Number 18. 1997 Ford Thunderbird, $1,400, Ann Arbor, Michigan. If you grew up in the 1990s, chances are you saw a car like this cruising around your neighborhood. Here we have a 1997 Ford Thunderbird, located in Ann Arbor, Michigan, offered at just $1,400. It comes with a green title, meaning it's clear and ready to be transferred to the next owner. The seller has owned this T-Bird since 2019, and it served faithfully as their daily driver up until January of last year. That alone tells you a lot. This isn't a car that's been sitting abandoned for a decade. It was used regularly and reliably until fairly recently. It starts, runs, and drives, but there are some known issues, which is why the asking price is so low. The most notable is a transmission shudder when shifting from third to fourth gear under low RPMs. The seller notes that if you get on the gas, it shifts fine, but under light load you'll feel the hesitation. On top of that, there's some rust at the rear passenger jack point, which is a common trouble spot in these cars. The suspension also needs work. The front control arms and rear bearings are worn, and the car feels loose as a result. On the upside, it's powered by the strong and smooth 4.6-liter V8, and every electrical feature works, right down to the sunroof. That's not always the case with older cars, so it's a good sign. The seller had plans to restore it, including installing new brakes and suspension components, but life simply got too busy. The terms of sale are clear: cash only, local transactions only. The seller won't accept e-payments, won't ship, and won't sell with an open title. If you see the ad, it's available, and they're open to the best reasonable offer. For $1,400, this is a cheap way to get into a rear-wheel drive V8 powered car with some personality. It needs work, yes, but for the right buyer, it's a solid project or even a budget daily once those suspension and transmission quirks are addressed. Number 19. 1987 Ford Thunderbird, $2,300, Sylvania, Ohio. Here's another Thunderbird, this time a 1987 model, being offered in Sylvania, Ohio, for $2,300. What's neat about this one is that the seller is also open to trades. So if you've got something interesting put on the table, they're willing to listen. This car is equipped with a 3.8-liter V6 paired with a 4-speed automatic transmission. While the V6 wasn't the most powerful option in the Thunderbird lineup, it was the workhorse that kept these cars on the road, and it's generally reliable when maintained. The seller describes the car as super clean, with only minimal surface rust. The only actual rust hole mentioned is on one of the doors, and they've included a photo of it. The interior is smoke-free and clean, which is always nice to see in a car that's nearly 4 decades old. Mechanically, the biggest issue is an intermittent ignition problem. Every once in a while, the car will shut off unexpectedly, but after 5 minutes it'll restart and run again. That points to an electrical or ignition module issue, and while it's an inconvenience, it's the sort of problem that can usually be solved with some diagnosis and parts replacement. The good news is that a lot of maintenance has already been handled. New front brake calipers, new battery, new spark plugs, wires, and coil pack, fresh fluids throughout. Both the heat and air conditioning work, which is a rare find in older cars. Overall, the seller says it starts, runs, drives, and stops just fine, aside from that occasional ignition hiccup. With a clean title in hand and a price tag of $2,300, this is a very accessible entry point into the world of Fox body Thunderbirds. With just a little electrical troubleshooting, it could be a very dependable daily driver or fun weekend cruiser. Number 20, 1986 Ford Thunderbird Coupe 2D, $8,500, Wyandotte, Michigan. Last but not least, we got a 1986 Ford Thunderbird Coupe located in Wyandotte, Michigan, with an asking price of $8,500. The seller is also open to a trade for a truck, but they make it clear they want all the details, as many photos as it can provide, and the truck has to be clean and reliable enough to serve as a daily driver. This 86 T-Bird is powered by a 302 cubic inch V8 paired to an AOD automatic transmission, and the odometer shows 114,000 miles. Now, the seller breaks down the condition into the bad and the good. Let's start with the bad. The paint job is what they call a driveway or garage job. It's not a professional finish, but it's also not terrible. Think of it as a car that looks perfectly fine cruising around town, even if it won't win trophies at car show. The interior is original, and at nearly 40 years old, it shows its age, but it's still considered decent overall. The good news, however, is extensive. This car originally came from Virginia, which means it's been spared some of the worst Midwest rust. Mechanically, it's seen a mountain of upgrades and maintenance in recent years. New transmission, torque converter, and stainless transmission lines. Rear main seal replaced while transmission was out. Fresh ignition components, plugs, wires, cap, rotor. Rear airbags installed. New H-pipe mufflers, oxygen sensors, stinger tailpipes, and hangers. New mini starter. New struts and mounts. Heavy-duty rear coil springs with airbags. New front rotors, bearings, and pads. New inner/outer tie rods with front-end alignment and sway bar and links. New fuel pump, filter, and regulator. New Felpro steel core valve cover gaskets and vacuum hoses. New aluminum radiator. Rear disc brake conversion. Rebuilt rear end. That's a staggering amount of new parts, covering everything from drivetrain to suspension to braking. It's the kind of list that tells you the previous owner invested heavily in making this car reliable and roadworthy. So while the cosmetics might not be perfect, mechanically this Thunderbird is rock solid. For $8,500, you're getting a Fox body Thunderbird that's had most of the big ticket work already taken care of. It's the perfect car for someone who wants a classic they can actually drive and enjoy without having to immediately sink thousands into repairs.